Let's take a look at what's new with the 18th edition of the Chicago Manual of Style. And here I'm going to focus mostly on changes related to academic writing and citation. One of the first things to be aware of is that the Style Manual no longer requires the city of publication. The exception is for books published prior to 1900, in which case the city is preferable to the publisher. Now, the 18th edition also discourages the use of the 3M dash to stand in for the same author. Now you should always write out the full name, as you can see here. The next change has to do with title case, which used to be called headline style. This refers to the capitalization of important words in a title. There is one important update. It used to be that most prepositions were lowercase. Now only short prepositions, which means fewer than 5 letters, are lowercase. Another change relates to alphabetizing entries in the bibliography. You now do so word by word rather than letter by letter. Next, let's look at another significant change. For works with multiple authors, you no longer need to cite as many names. Pause the video to see the difference. Not only are there changes, but there are also some new sections. For example, the 18th edition includes rules for citing indigenous knowledge keepers, as well as content generated by AI. Moving on, the 18th edition no longer requires a page range for citing chapters in books. In the note, only a specific page is referenced. This rule also applies to introductions, prefaces, and so on. The next change has to do with periodical dates. In the past, it was quite common to include the month or the season. Now that is quite optional, and in fact, if you provide both the volume and the issue number, then it's typically not necessary to include the month or the season. Another change has to do with titles. In the past, italicized titles that contain words that are normally also in italics would be styled as in the first example. Notice how Schmuck and Kibitzer are both in Roman font. The 18th edition allows for italicizing the entire book title, as you can see in the second example. If you're familiar with the 17th edition, you might remember that it recommended deleting the from most titles of newspapers and periodicals. The 18th edition is more circumspect and only says that you may omit the article in a note or bibliography entry. In any case, in the body of your text, you should always write out the title in full. Next, when citing the title of a social media post, it has long been customary to quote the text of the post instead. The upper limit for how many characters to quote has been bumped up from 160 characters in the 17th edition to 280 characters in the 18th. The quote in this example has 180 characters, including spaces, so under the new rules, it would not need to be shortened. There are many small changes that we can't mention, but we'll end with a couple of them. When indicating the duration of a piece of music or an audio recording, write out the time by using the abbreviations min and sec. In the past, this would have simply said 55:33. Finally, where before an entry in a reference work could be cited under the abbreviation SV, meaning sub verbo or under the word, now you should simply use the word under. And that's it for important changes and updates to the 18th edition of the Chicago Manual of Style.